go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome all. Get my microphone on here. First item on the agenda, item 2, is the additions or deletions to the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions? I do want to talk briefly about a process question which will come up tonight, and I'm going to suggest a solution to it. But we have now started these items on consent, these quasi-judicial matters which are on a consent agenda. And I know that tonight there's an issue concerning one of the matters. I had a question concerning one or two of the matters. And I wanted to make sure that, or I wanted to suggest that if we have a question or a minor modification, that we keep it on consent, deal with those minor issues, and then go ahead and vote on it as a consent matter. What I don't want to do is once we take it off consent, suddenly we open the door to a full-blown evidentiary hearing as we normally would have. I don't think that's fair to staff who may not have prepared for a full-blown evidentiary hearing. I don't think it's fair to the applicant either. So that's the process I'm planning on using. If any of you have any comments or concerns, please share them. And if not, Bill, any concerns from your end?
No, my only concern would be that if a member of the public would wish to speak about a matter on consent, that they would be first sworn in, give their testimony, and if that would elicit any other comments from the board or further questioning, we might need to take some testimony on that point.
And if that happens, at some point it's going to roll off consent to a
Correct.
To a full-blown hearing. We'll just have to deal with it at that point. Okay. Oops. Anything else? Okay. First item, or next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of September 24, 2015. Do we have any motions with respect to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
By Mr. Brognano, second by Mr. Rednauer. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Hearing none, that motion unanimously carries. Okay, we do move to item 4A, which is an item on consent. I'll go ahead and read it into the record. It's River Village Estates request for preliminary plan development, plan plat approval for 25 single-family units. GH Vero Beach Development LLC is the owner. Masteller and Moeller Inc. is the agent. It's located within the overall Grand Harbor development and bordered by the River Village Towers 1 through 5 condominium buildings on the north, the Indian River Lagoon on the east, undeveloped wetlands on the south, and South Harbor Drive on the west. Excuse me. The zoning is RM6. Residential multifamily up to 6 units per acre. The land use designation is M1, medium density 1, which is up to 8 units per acre. The density will be 4.22 units per acre. And this is a quasi-judicial matter. And I'll start by asking if any of the commissioners have had any ex parte communications, site visits, inspections, or if they have any conflicts or are aware of any other reason why they cannot decide this matter based upon the facts and on the law. I will disclose that I live in Grand Harbor, although nowhere near this particular piece of property. I have driven by it, and that's about all I have. Okay. It is a consent matter. Do we have anything further on this? Anybody have anything you want to add on this one?
On reflections?
On River Village.
Okay. No.
Okay. Any member of the public want to be heard on this River Village matter? If not, do we then have a motion with respect to this matter incorporating staff's recommendations?
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendations.
Second.
And that was made by Mr. Emmons and Mr. Stewart, was it? Or Mr. Brognano seconded. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Hearing none, that motion carries. Okay, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, item 4B. Again, I will go ahead and read this into the record. This is Reflections ALF. It's a request for major site plan approval for an assisted living facility The request replaces a previous site plan approval which expired. Reflections Commercial LLC is the owner. Sustainable Engineering and Design LLC is the agent. It's located on the east side of US 1 near Schumann Drive, adjacent to the Reflections on the River condominium development. The zoning classification is RM6, residential multifamily, up to 6 units per acre, and CL, limited commercial. The land use designations are L2, low density 2, which is up to 6 units per acre, and CI, commercial industrial. The density is 125 residential beds on a 6.80 acre project site. Again, we'll start. Do any of the commissioners, or have they had any ex parte communications, site inspections, investigations, conflicts, any other matter which might prevent them from considering this matter based upon the facts and on the law?
No.
If not, I will disclose once again, the agenda item recites that the Board of County Commissioners conditionally approved an application for special exception use approval, et cetera, on December 13, 2011. I was the county attorney at that time and certainly sat through that particular meeting, but otherwise do not believe it would impact my vote at all tonight. Okay, now, this is a consent matter, but I understand staff has some issue.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Plackowicz. John McCoy with the planning staff for the record. And I'd like to offer an informational update. This informational update does not affect the staff's analysis, does not affect the recommendation, and does not affect the conditions, why it's purely an informational update. And when this item was previously considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2012, the staff report did reflect that the application was the subject of a legal dispute. And planning staff believed that the legal dispute had been resolved, and there have been minor changes made in the site plan design that were based on pursuing a resolution to that legal dispute. And it appears that some of the parties have come to a resolution, but not all of the parties. And staff received an email that received the email subsequent to our staff report going to you all, informing us that all the parties to the dispute had not reached a resolution, and we wanted to inform you of that. Doesn't change the recommendation. Staff did keep the condition in the staff report that relates to the legal dispute, and if there's any subsequent loss of property as a result of that legal dispute. So that condition will stay in effect and cover any potentials there. I would like to indicate that we did coordinate with the Deputy County Attorney. The Deputy County Attorney did respond to the email we received, and that response has been entered into the record here today as part of the staff report and response. And we did coordinate with the county attorney, and I turn it over to him if he has any comments on this matter.
No, John, I think you've summed everything up. We've taken a look at the deed and the title insurance on the property in question. Going forward, the applicant understands that they do so at their own risk, just as they did so in 2012.
We have received, as you mentioned, commissioners have received tonight an email addressing the position that there is still a legal dispute and Mr. DeBraw's response. I understand they would like these to be part of the record as well. Correct. Okay. I did have a minor question about this this particular item. Now, I was wondering about the access through the kind of the main road and going through the bank parking lot. And I guess my first question is, it seems to me in the past where access to a project that we've been asked to approve is through an easement by some other party, that the easement has been a condition of our approval. In other words, that they attain the legal right to go through that property. And again, I don't have enough information to know what the underlying facts are here. I don't know if an easement is going to be the answer here, but let me ask that question. Is that where this project is headed, that there's going to be an easement through the Oculina Bank piece?
It's my understanding there's an existing easement that provides for that access.
Okay. Mr. Paladin, did you want to address, or is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And staff is fine with the access that's going to kind of wind its way through the parking lot
Correct.
bank?
It's been evaluated by traffic engineering
Yeah,
and engineering, and that's sufficient based on the development.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just also noticed not the sole access to the
No, I
property.
realize that.
We've seen this a few times, so were we under the impression, staff under the impression that the legal dispute had been resolved prior?
Yes, based on the design changes,
Okay.
we were under the impression that all the parties
Okay,
had come
got
to
it.
an agreement, when in fact it appears that some of the parties had come to a resolution and some had not, and that there are multiple parties to the dispute.
And I think the position that we're being asked to take, which is that's a private matter that they're going to have to litigate, is pretty consistent with what we've done in the past.
That's correct. Yeah.
You know, where there's surface title there that, at least on the surface, appears to exist. If somebody disputes that, that's their issue for the court. But
Correct.
we don't
Correct.
get involved in that.
And we thought it was less like the 2012 application. As it turns out, it's a little bit more like the 2012 application as far as the factual circumstances.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this one? And again, the record will consist of the materials from staff and from the 2 emails. Do we have a motion then with respect to item 4B,
Motion to approve?
in approving staff recommendations?
I'll
I
second.
think? We have a motion by Mr. Brugnano, a second by Mr. Stewart. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Hearing none, that motion carries. Okay, that brings us off the consent agenda to our next item, which is 5A. And again, I'll read this into the record. This is FPL Spanish Lakes Substation, a request for administrative permit use approval for a private limited utility facility substation. Florida Power and Light is the owner. Culpeper and Turpinning, Inc. is the agent. It's located at 1280 86th Avenue Southwest. The zoning is A2, Agricultural 2, which is up to 1 unit per 10 acres. The land use designation is Ag 2, Agricultural 2, up to 1 unit per 10 acres. It is a quasi-judicial matter, and we'll start by asking if any of the commissioners have had any ex parte communications, site inspections, investigations, or conflicts, or any other matter which might prevent them from considering this matter based solely on the facts and the evidence. I probably should disclose that many years ago, going back into the 1980s, as personal representative of my brother's estate, we sued Florida Power and Light. And eventually that was resolved probably, well, in the 1990s. However, I don't believe that.
Lies there.
Yeah.
No, and you're okay.
And we went through that issue when I was county attorney many times as well. So, otherwise, this is not on consent. It is quasi-judicial, so I would ask any person who plans to testify in this matter to please stand and swear and affirm to tell the truth.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We'll start with the county administration, county's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For the record, I am Ryan Sweeney, Senior Planner with the County Planning Division. As you had said, tonight we have an application for Spanish Lake Substation, which is an administrative permit use application. A brief description. The subject site is zoned A2 Agricultural 2, which requires administrative permit use approval for what is technically deemed a private limited utility or an electrical substation. It is also subject to the specific land use criteria outlined for a private limited utility, and it requires P&Z approval. The subject site is located along 86th Avenue Southwest at the intersection of 13th Street Southwest, which is an unimproved right-of-way, so you can't tell by looking at it that it's a street, but there is right-of-way there. It is west of I-95 and just south of Oslo Road. Here is an aerial depicting the existing conditions of the site with the site plan overlaid on top of the aerial, showing the existing use of the site is essentially abandoned citrus groves, and the surrounding area is either active or abandoned citrus groves and a active sand mine to the south. Here's a site plan graphic depicting the proposed site layout, including the electrical substation, the electrical equipment yard here in the center, and we'll talk about some of the site details on the next few slides here. The traffic circulation plan, again, along 86th Avenue Southwest, which is an improved public road, but it is unpaved, it's a dirt road, as well as 13th Street Southwest right-of-way, which is unimproved. There will be a paved two-way access driveway to the site, as well as a 75-foot turnaround area, parking area for maintenance vehicles. There is no formal parking requirement for an unmanned electrical substation yard. Also mentioned in staff's report, there is a requirement for a 50-foot corner clip because the site is located at an intersection of two county right-of-ways, 86th Avenue Southwest and 13th Street, and that's depicted here in blue at the bottom of the graphic. The stormwater plan includes two dry detention areas, one to the northwest of the substation electrical yard and one to the southeast. And finally, the landscape plan depicts the required landscaping, buffering, and screening, which includes a local road buffer along 86th Avenue Southwest, as well as a Type C buffer along the other two property lines. It is a triangular piece of property, so there's only a total of 3 sides. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission grant administrative permit use approval for the FP&L Spanish Lake substation with conditions stated in staff's report, including the 50-foot right-of-way corner clip and the landscape buffering improvements. Thank you.
Any member of the commission have any questions of county staff? Does the applicant have any questions of county staff?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Pat Farland. I'm a professional engineer with the firm of Culpepper Interpreting, representing the applicant, and we're in total agreement with the staff report. We believe it to be accurate. I would ask one thing related to their recommendation, and they have the comment number 1 is that the applicant shall dedicate the required 50-foot right-of-way corner clip prior to site plan release. He did. It was up there before, and I would just ask that be not delay the site plan release. Let them get under construction. The corner clip is to an unimproved roadway, so there's no urgency on the obtaining of the right-of-way. We have submitted the sketch and legal description to county staff for review, and believe that we should be allowed to go ahead and get underway while that is in the process. Be happy to provide a letter, if that's the proper thing, from FPL confirming it's on the site plan. We've already submitted the sketch and legal description, and we've already made a written response that it would be dedicated. So that would be my only request.
Is there a timeline difference?
Again, I don't think there's any reason the site plan couldn't be released except for this. And it's just going through the staff review now. They're reviewing the legal description. And then after that, the deed would just be signed and executed, I expect, and then recorded. So it should only be a matter of, I mean, we can do our side in a week, but we're at the, I can't think of the word.
Mercy's not the word.
At the mercy. I wasn't going to say that.
The
of
entire
staff
county is
review
at the
period,
mercy of planning
and
staff.
that's all. So I don't think it'll be any more than a few weeks, but and maybe it all comes together in the right time, but it just doesn't seem like, from our side, that would be an urgent matter, like I say, and I would just ask that they be allowed to go ahead and get their construction permits issued and get underway.
Mr. Bowling, do you have any comment? Or Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, it's been the county practice to tie right-of-way dedications to site plan release. We have on occasion, and I think with another FP&L facility, understanding being at the mercy of a large corporation to get deeds through multiple attorneys and such, we've accepted a written, basically a written agreement from them, a commitment that prior to site plan release, and then tying the actual dedication to CO of the project. And since this is a minor right-of-way dedication, and there's no urgency for the county obtaining the right-of-way for a project, we would have no objection to changing the condition to time of CO. As long as they gave us a written commitment prior to site plan release, we would be fine with that.
Is that consistent with what you're...
Absolutely, that would be great. We'd be perfectly fine with that.
Okay, any commissioner have any questions or comments to the FPL representative?
So just so I'm clear, so right now it's a condition of prior to site plan release. We would change that language to prior to issuance of CO?
Yes, in addition,
And one more, right? Okay.
in addition, prior to site plan release, obtaining a,
Written commitment.
actually, prior to site plan release, the applicant submitting written commitment to dedicate the right-of-way prior to CO.
Okay.
Any other question?
That cleans it up, okay.
Any other questions or comments on that? Any member of the public want to be heard on that? If not, we'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing. The evidence shall consist of the materials from the county staff on this, the agenda item. And beyond that, do we have any motion then?
I'll motion to affirm that with the recommendations from Stan Bowling on the letter.
The revised recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rednauer. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Brognano, I think that was?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign? Hearing none, that motion carries. Brings us to item 6. Thank you. Commissioners' matters. Do we have any matters?
I don't think,
Do the commissioners matter? We do. Okay. Planning matters. Any questions or comments on the planning materials?
Mr. Chairman, just one, I'd like to update you all on some matters that you all have made some recommendations to the board on. Since your last meeting, the Board of County Commissioners has actually at 2 of their meetings considered the parking regulations for vacation rentals. They continued the public hearing to October 6th. They took some testimony, but then continued it to October 13th, so they'd have a full board, all 5 members. So they heard testimony on the 13th, and they took action completely consistent with your recommendation, which was to approve the requirements as proposed minus the provision for the excess parking spaces. I will tell you also, and I believe we've reported this to you all before, that the short-term vacation rental committee is in process. They've had their first meeting, and they've selected 3 topics to look at over the next 3 months, and I think they'll be reporting back to the board probably in the winter. And ultimately, any regulations that the board wants to look at formally will be coming back to you all. So I think it's several months away from you all seeing something.
Now, on that point,
sir.
Mr. Bowling, if I recall correctly, hadn't your department made a revised recommendation with respect to large agricultural properties or something
We
solely
did
contained?
for this commercial event ordinance.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
That was the other ordinance. They did adopt that on September
that was
22nd.
earlier, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right, the 2 separate ordinances.
Okay.
And it was a good thing they were separate, I think. And
Yeah,
we got the
I think so.
action taken on that. Also, on October 13th, the board adopted the sea turtle protection, sea turtle lighting ordinance. And you may recall we'd reported to you all had suggested some changes, and we incorporated those into the proposed ordinance. So that's consistent with the recommendation that you all had, and the board made no changes to the proposal. Also, on October 20th, the board approved the Sandy Lane plan development on the South Barrier Island, the 9-lot, consistent with your recommendation and staff's recommendation with no changes, so that was approved too. So you guys are 3 for 3.
Yeah.
And that's all that I had, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Any other matters or actually attorney matters?
No. I have no matters.
Okay.
Okay, we intend to have, and we normally would schedule 1 meeting in November. We think that we will need to have that meeting. That would be the second Thursday. I believe it's November 12th. November 12th. So that will be the only meeting. We won't meet on Thanksgiving night or anything like that. But then we generally also have 1 meeting in December, and we try to keep that the second Thursday in December as well, which I think is the 10th. So that's the schedule coming up, and we do believe we will have some items for the November 12th P&Z meeting.
Okay. Anything else to come before the board tonight? If not, thank you all for coming. Meeting adjourned.